Greetings, everyone. I'm Historical Method Man. Today is the first part of a multi-part series on cross-cultural depictions in the American and European theme park industry. Today, we will be looking at how Africa is depicted in Western theme parks. So, if you would be so kind to like, comment, and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Let's jump in. Representations of Africa in American and European theme parks reveal a continuity from the colonial era, where white corporations and businesses continue to exoticize the so-called Dark Continent for their audiences. Before exploring specific attractions, themed lands, and theme parks, it is important to first understand the concept of Africa in the Western imagination. Dr. Curtis A. Keim's monograph, Mistaking Africa: Curiosities and Inventions of the American Mind, provides a framework to understand depictions of Africa in American theme parks. Dr. Keim asked his students to create a list of words that come to mind when thinking about Africa. His students came up with traditional words: native, savage, hut, tribe, and cannibals. Tourism words: safari, pyramid, wild animals. News words: poverty, ignorance, tragedy. Change words that indicated Western-induced change, like development, missionary, and foreign aid. And occasionally, the students came up with racist words. We learned to accept these myths from popular culture and television culture, cartoons, news, nature documentaries, ethnography documentaries on the learning channels, and in this case, themed entertainment parks. Theme parks make Africa seem excitingly different and exotic within Western imaginations. Comparing Six Flags Great Adventure and Wild Safari, Busch Gardens' The Dark Continent, and Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park reveals a through line in a greater landscape of safari theme parks. As Curtis A. Keim noted, these parks respond to demand. Quote, "We prefer rural ethnography and find nature more interesting and enlightening than daily life in urban cities where people actually reside." There are three patterns that are recognizable and consistent when it comes to depicting Africa in these theme parks. First, there is the tendency to manufacture nature on demand through animal exhibits that conceal many natural aspects of wildlife while also presenting themselves as natural environments. Second, these parks tend to exhibit Africa as either a homogeneous entity and sometimes a group of spaces, without giving context to adequately represent the peoples and cultures they imagine. Third, these parks cement Africa in Western imaginations as an exotic land that is excitingly different. The first attraction that we will look at is Six Flags Great Adventure's indoor roller coaster, Skull Mountain. Opened in 1996, Skull Mountain has a dark atmosphere of foreboding that sent a message to theme park guests that they were entering a dangerous place. During the early years of the attraction, 1996 to 1998, Skull Mountain had a detailed queue, rare for a Six Flags amusement park, that depicted a non-specific African village. A 1996 press release set the stage for visitors embarking to explore Skull Mountain. The visual story unfolds as guests enter the jungle pathway which leads to Skull Mountain's entrance. Guests take on the role of explorers attempting to discover the secret of the mountain's origin. As they wind through an elaborate path surrounded by lush, tropical vegetation, visitors encounter signs of previously failed expeditions, including overturned jeeps, abandoned campsites, and the remains of previous explorers. Spears, shields, and totems with African-like insignias surrounded the abandoned dig site of the story's archaeologist. The huts were small and thatched. Interesting to note were the large cauldrons in the queue, large enough to fit a human. With the way it was positioned, no one could see what's inside, so guests were led to imagine that previous explorers had become the cannibal natives' lunch. As for the ride itself, it remains not much more than a lightly themed roller coaster in a metal box. Between the first and second tire-driven lift hills, riders on expedition trains passed by the human skeleton of an explorer who wore a colonial pith helmet and hat, and between him and the wall was a native shield. In the context of the attraction's story, they were about to suffer the same fate as this Western explorer who encountered the natives of Skull Mountain. These theming elements reinforce American imaginations that heralded Africa as a primitive and backward space from the colonial past, never allowed to exist in the present. The exoticism present in Skull Mountain, and by extension other similarly themed attractions, portrays Africa as excitingly different. Usually this is at the expense of African culture, and an extraordinary person of which is removed from its everyday context in a way that allows us to believe that the wider culture itself is wholly extraordinary. Attractions like Skull Mountain misrepresent and mistake Africa because they present the continent as mysterious, mystifying, and completely other. Similar exoticizing depictions of Africa laid in the same Adventure Rivers section of Six Flags Great Adventure. This 1991 parkland included slide towers lightly themed to North American, Asian, and African rivers. A sign positioned near the entrance of the African slides encouraged guests to discover the Dark Continent and explore its mighty rivers. The headliner attraction was a 12-person whitewater rapids ride, the first of its kind. Six Flags changed the 1981 Roaring Rapids attraction name to the Congo Rapids when the Adventure Rivers area of the park opened, explicitly altering the theming to be consistent with American imaginations of Africa. On the current attraction listing, Six Flags encourages Congo Rapids riders to get ready to get wet. Gear up for the ultimate whitewater river rafting experience on this exotic and exciting float through the dense jungle. To be clear, there is nothing exotic about the ride itself, only insofar as the park associates the name and theming to Africa. More notably, the operators at the Roaring Rapids/Congo Rapids were the only crew members with a specialized uniform, safari-style shirts, khaki shorts, and pith helmets to block out the sun. This dress harkened back to a historical period of imperialism, as the safari expedition uniform consistently appears in both the Congo Rapids and Skull Mountain. Because Six Flags Great Adventure is a large but typical regional chain amusement park, this theming and visual language extends to countless other American and European theme parks. Rides across the Atlantic also use this visual language to differentiate between the civilized and the savage. Monsieur Cannibal at De Efteling theme park in the Katsuval, Netherlands, debuted in 1988. This teacup-style flat ride perpetuated the same cannibal stereotypes about non-Western peoples through its marquee figure. The figure had no animation, and it was totally other and inhuman. This Monsieur Cannibal was half devil and half child, as Rudyard Kipling described in The White Man's Burden. Monsieur Cannibal is holding a white Tarzan child, and it cannot learn how to properly use a spoon for the ice cream it eats seemingly drunkenly. It wears the spoon as a piercing. I use the word "it" intentionally to demonstrate that Efteling designed this character to be readably non-human. If you've made it this far, please consider subscribing. Another safari amusement park themed to Africa, Busch Gardens, Tampa, used to go by the name of Busch Gardens, the Dark Continent. The Dark Continent theme park exoticized the continent of Africa by failing to provide context to the peoples, nations, and cultures it claimed to fairly represent. According to Curtis A. Keim, exoticism portrays only a portion of a culture and allows the imagination to use stereotypes to fill in the missing pieces. So, we extrapolate that other people are more different from us than they are similar. With the name The Dark Continent, the Anheuser-Busch Company presented Africa as an unknowable and mysterious place, sustaining Western myths about Africa. Curtis A. Keim, when writing, was aware of theme park's ability to captivate the imagination and make Africa, again, excitingly different. Keim analyzed a 1970s poster that advertised the park. The poster depicted a white family in an African environment, the husband and a safari suit and pith helmet, holding a chimpanzee and pointing to some off-poster site, with his wife looking on passively. His children are also following in his gaze. From the back of the elephant, an Arab or Swahili guide in flowing robes looks on, while three barely visible black African men dressed in loincloths carry the family's luggage. Busch Gardens, the Dark Continent, no longer used the poster, of which I could not find on the internet. They removed the poster due to protest. In 1996, the park rebranded itself into Busch Gardens, Tampa, with a pledge and a promise to do education, conservation, and research. However, the Ubanga Banga bumper cars, which used a fake African-sounding name, in the Congo section of the park still exists. The Congo section of the park was previously named Stanleyville, after the colonial town that bore the name of the violent white conqueror of the Belgian Congo. Busch Gardens Tampa wants us to forget about its previous name and history, precisely because they knew that they generalized and mistaked Africa, still trying to cover their backs with facades of education. The Walt Disney Company attempted to avoid negative depictions of Africa and Asia with the creation of Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park in 1998. Regardless, the park continues to reinforce many tropes of exoticism that mistake Africa as a single homogeneous space. Kilimanjaro Safari is the headliner attraction in the Africa-themed land in Animal Kingdom. Keim acknowledges how conquest nostalgia is being sold by the attraction's dilapidated colonial-era outpost. Kilimanjaro Safaris also has many scenes where nature is on demand, as story beats are triggered as the safari-themed bus traverses the course. The storyline is a hunt for poachers, of which Keim observed to model Disney's other enterprises, which from their founding in the 1950s have epitomized the Western dream of the conquest and management of nature through science and technology. The Animal Kingdom designers took a 3-week safari trip to Africa, where they were planning the park and its headliner, Kilimanjaro Safari. Authenticity, either real or perceived, was the utmost goal of theming an area to Africa. Animal footprints, tire tracks, and large aggregate are all part of reproducing and simulating the African continent for Western audiences. Claiming authenticity allows audiences to mistake Africa because it distracts from the fact that it is simulacra. The goal of the theme park designer is to make you forget that the environments are simulacra, to turn the hyper-real into the real. Theme park designers across the board continue to depict Africa as a homogeneous place, more important for its rural ethnography than its more urban reality. Theme parks of all budgets, from Six Flags to Efteling, use Africa as a theme because white Western audiences find it excitingly different. Exoticism plays a massive role in these post-colonial presentations of African people and places. In theme park design, the aesthetics of the colonial period prevail over the aesthetics of an independent Africa because white and Western audiences see themselves not alongside simulated Africans, but alongside the diegetic colonizers in African stories. I'm Historical Method Man, and stay tuned for another part of Animatronics, Theme Parks, and Race. If you've made it this far, please consider subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it,